My sister convinced my parents to exclude me from our cousin's wedding, but when she asked if she could crash at my place during her internship, I told her, "I'm just the disappointment, remember?" My golden child sister talked my parents and cousin into excluding me from a family wedding, calling me difficult. A few months later, she had the audacity to ask to stay at my apartment for her new internship in Seattle. I reminded her I was just a disappointment, and said no. Now the whole family thinks I'm the villain. "I just thought we could start fresh," Leona said over the phone. It was quiet in my apartment. My cat, Machi, stretched lazily across the couch. Rain pattered against the window, classic Seattle weather. "You remember what you said when I wasn't invited to Sierra's wedding?" I asked her, calm but steady. She paused, not expecting me to bring that up. "Nadine, come on, don't make this a whole thing. I'm just disappointed, right? So why would you want to stay with me?" She stammered something, a protest, a plea, who knows, but I was already done. I hung up. Let me go back and explain. I'm Nadine. I'm 34 years old and have lived in Seattle for the past 8 years. I work in user experience design, live alone unless you count Machi, and have a nice little life carved out here. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Growing up in Beaverton, Oregon, I was always the serious one. The quiet, bookish kid who preferred sketching or science kits to soccer or recitals. My younger sister, Leona, was the exact opposite, bubbly, charismatic, always performing, always on. And, as it turns out, I was always beloved by my parents. They adored her, openly. Even as kids, the difference was glaring. When I won a regional art competition in middle school, I got a lukewarm good job before Mom reminded me to do the dishes. When Leona got third place in a school talent show for lip-syncing to Britney Spears, she got a dinner out and balloons. It wasn't just favoritism. It was a strategy. Leona was the kind of person who made other people feel good about themselves. Teachers, relatives, neighbors, they all melted for her. And our parents? They saw her as their pride and joy, while I was the smart but standoffish one. It shaped everything. By the time we were in our 20s, we were essentially strangers with childhood photos together. She stayed in Portland after college and got into PR. I moved to Seattle, partially for work, mostly for space. We maintained a strained, polite kind of contact. Texts on birthdays. Obligatory calls at Christmas. But we never really talked, not like sisters. Then came Sierra's wedding. Sierra is our cousin, close in age, and someone I'd always been tight with. At least, I thought I was. We used to have sleepovers as kids, would message occasionally during college, and even saw each other during one of her trips to Seattle 3 years ago. So when she got engaged, I naturally assumed I'd be invited. I wasn't. No save the date. No invite. Not even a text. I reached out to her, twice, just a casual "hey, congrats. Would love to celebrate with you." No response. It stung, deeply. I tried not to overreact, but the silence was too loud. Finally, I called my mom to ask about it. "Oh, honey," she said breezily, "Sierra's keeping it small. You know, intimate. Just close friends and family." "I am family," I said, confused. There was a pause. Then the excuse, "Well, Leona's in the wedding party, and I think Sierra felt it might be awkward to have both of you there." I couldn't believe it. Awkward? I scrolled through Instagram later that night. There were pictures of the bridal shower, beautifully arranged, catered, all pastel-themed and Pinterest perfect. Leona was front and center, beaming, tagged in every post. I wasn't even mentioned. That's when I messaged her directly. "Hey. What happened with the wedding? Did you say something to Sierra?" Her response came an hour later. "Sierra didn't think it was a good idea to include you. You've always been a bit difficult. It's her day. Don't make it about you." That sentence burned into me. You've always been a bit difficult. As if my exclusion was a logical consequence of my personality. As if this was just an unfortunate byproduct of me being me. I didn't respond. What was the point? The wedding came and went. My parents went, of course. They sent me a photo of the venue and a polite "wish you were here" text that made me want to throw my phone across the room. Leona posted videos of the reception, laughing and dancing like she had no idea what she'd just participated in. I didn't speak to her after that. For 3 months, there was silence. I went to work, came home, took care of Machi, and slowly, with effort, accepted that my family saw me as a disposable accessory to their curated image. I didn't deserve it. But I also wasn't going to beg for a place at their table anymore. Then in mid-January, I got a text from Leona. "Hey! So I just got this amazing internship with a PR firm in downtown Seattle. Super excited. I started in 2 weeks and was wondering if I could crash at your place while I apartment hunt. Just for like 3 to 4 weeks. No apology. No mention of the wedding. Just a casual expectation that I would, of course, open my home to her like nothing had happened. It took me a whole day to decide whether or not to respond. When I finally did, it was with a phone call. I needed her to hear me. The conversation was short. I asked her about the wedding. She deflected. I reminded her of what she said about me, the disappointment, difficult. I asked why she thought I would still be available for her now. "I just thought we could start fresh," she said. And I said, "I'm just disappointed, remember? So why would you want to stay with me?" I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just hung up. She didn't call back. What surprised me was how fast the family rallied against me after that. My mom called 2 days later. She didn't ask how I was or what had happened. She jumped straight to, "Leona told me you said some very hurtful things. She's alone in a new city, Nadine. How could you turn your back on her?" I was quiet for a moment. "Did she tell you what she said about me? When I wasn't invited to the wedding?" "She said there was miscommunication. Maybe you took things the wrong way." There it was, the classic deflection. Not once had anyone in my family asked what I felt. Just that I had hurt Leona. That I had denied her help, and that made me cold, unforgiving, difficult. Again. I'm not ending this here because the story isn't really over. I still haven't spoken to Leona since that call. She did end up finding a place in Ballard, based on the Instagram photos she continues to post, smoothie bowls, rooftop sunsets, and quotes like "be the bigger person." My parents keep the peace by pretending nothing happened. We talked about the weather. About my dad's new blood pressure medication. Never about the rift. But I've changed. I'm not the same person who kept swallowing silence for the sake of family unity. I've stopped showing up to things out of guilt. I've learned to value peace over appearances. Sometimes I still grieve the idea of a sister, the one I thought I had when we were little. But Leona isn't her. She hasn't been for a long time. I'm not asking for advice, exactly. But if you've ever been the black sheep, the scapegoat, the difficult one in a family that prioritizes appearances over accountability, I'd like to hear from you. Because this is the loneliest kind of grief, when your family is still alive, but the connection is dead. I didn't tell many people about what happened. My coworkers only knew Leona was my sister in the vaguest sense. A few close friends had seen glimpses of our family dynamic over the years, but I'd never really opened up about the depth of it. Maybe because deep down, I'd always been afraid they'd agree with her. That they'd say, "Well, you can be kind of cold sometimes, or maybe you should have been more forgiving." So instead, I kept the ugly parts folded up neatly and stored where no one could reach. But after that phone call, something in me shifted. I started therapy again. I'd gone sporadically in the past, mostly for anxiety and self-esteem issues. This time, I went in with one clear goal: to understand why I still wanted approval from people who treated me like an outsider. My therapist, Dr. Huang, listened patiently. She never jumped to conclusions. Instead, she asked careful questions that forced me to re-examine the story I'd been telling myself since childhood, that I wasn't easy, and therefore wasn't lovable. I wonder, she said during our third session, if Leona learned early on how to stay close to your parents by giving them what they needed: performance, charm, comfort. And maybe you gave them something else: honesty. And honesty can be threatening. It hit me hard. Because I knew she was right. I had always been the one who asked questions, challenged assumptions, and called out hypocrisy. Leona made things pretty. I made them real. And in our house, pretty always won. Over the next few months, I started to notice the subtle ways I'd tried to shrink myself, even in my own home. The lack of photos on my walls. The way I apologized too much, even to strangers. The way I panicked when someone said they were disappointed in me, even slightly. Leona didn't just hurt me with that comment. She'd echoed the same script I'd been fed my whole life. That I was hard to love. But here's the thing, I'm not. I'm steady. I show up. I listen. I might not sparkle like she does, but I stay. And over time, the people who matter most have come to see that. One of those people was Marcus. We met in a mutual friends book club. He was quiet, like me, wore knit sweaters and had a habit of underlining passages in library books which he swore he'd stop doing, but didn't. What struck me most was his patience. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He just showed up every week, asked good questions, and made people feel heard. I didn't think he noticed me much at first. But after one of our meetups, he offered to walk me to my car because it was raining, and I hadn't brought an umbrella. Small gesture, but kind. Later, he texted me to say he liked my thoughts on the bell jar, and wondered if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. It was the first date I'd said yes to in nearly 2 years. We took things slowly. I didn't tell him about Leona right away, not because I was hiding her, but because I didn't want her shadow looming over something that felt fresh and good. But eventually, she came up. We were walking around Green Lake one Saturday, and he asked if I had any siblings. I laughed without meaning to. "Oh," I said. "That's a long story." He didn't push. Just said, "I've got time." So I told him. Not the whole thing, not yet. Just the big pieces. The wedding. The text. The call. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions. He just nodded and said, "That sounds incredibly hurtful." It was the first time someone said that out loud. I realized, then, that I'd spent so much of my life minimizing what had happened. Calling it family drama or sibling tension instead of what it really was: betrayal. Manipulation. Conditional love. That moment, someone simply validating my pain, healed something small but crucial in me. Meanwhile, back in my old family orbit, things remained performative. I got a birthday card from my parents that year, signed "Love, Mom and Dad," but no call. Leona posted a photo of herself in a birthday crown with the caption, "Celebrating my sis's birthday from afar. Can't wait to reconnect soon." It was nauseating. Like she wanted credit for being a good sister without actually doing anything to earn the title. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the post to my therapist, who replied, "That's not love. That's branding." Leona didn't reach out again until the summer. She sent me a long text, the kind that starts with "Hey stranger" and ends with "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I feel like we should catch up." I showed it to Marcus. "Do you want to?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I want an apology. But I don't trust that she knows what that really means." "You don't owe her anything," he said. "But if you need closure, maybe it's worth hearing her out. Just on your terms." It took me 2 weeks to decide. Finally, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Fremont. Public, neutral ground. She arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and a breezy linen blouse. Still effortlessly polished. Still Leona. I'm really glad you came, she said, taking them off. I gave her a nod. No smile. She dove right in. Told me about her new job, how Seattle had grown on her, and how she missed having family around. She talked about the wedding, briefly, and admitted things got complicated. She never used the word sorry. I waited. She said she'd been under a lot of pressure. That Sierra was sensitive and didn't want any drama. She said she didn't think her comment about me being difficult would hurt that much. I asked her, have you ever asked why you thought I was difficult? She blinked. Well, you were always kind of serious. And intense. And that's worse than being cruel? She paused. I could see the gears turning. But no real reflection. No ownership. Just vague sentiment. I just want us to be close again, she said. We were never close, I said softly. And that's when her expression shifted. Not angry. Not sad. Just offended. Like I'd denied her something she believed she was entitled to. It was the most honest thing I'd ever said to her. We finished our coffees. I paid the bill. We walked outside. She gave me a quick hug, brittle and shallow, and said, let's not let another year go by. I didn't promise anything. I just nodded and left. That was 6 months ago. We haven't spoken since. I didn't feel angry after that meeting. Just tired. It was like finally revisiting a burned-down house you used to live in, realizing that the walls you once memorized were gone, the furniture dust, the rooms echoing with ghosts that no longer haunted you the same way. I'd gone hoping, in some small way, that maybe Leona would say something different. Not profound. Not poetic. Just real. That she would finally break character, stop trying to curate how she looked, and meet me in that raw place we'd both avoided since childhood. But she never did. And that was the most clarifying moment of all. It wasn't that she didn't care. She did, in her own way. But her love was always transactional, always tied to how well you played along. The moment you stopped smiling through things, you became inconvenient. For a while after our coffee, I caught myself reliving the conversation. What I said. What she didn't. The way she smiled when she thought we were moving past it, as if that was enough. As if her showing up counted for more than what she never truly acknowledged. And yet, despite the hollowness of it all, I felt lighter. In therapy, we talked about that feeling. Dr. Huang described it as mourning the version of someone you hoped existed. A grief without a funeral. That resonated more than I expected. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized how long I'd been performing too. Not the way Leona did, not with hair flips and cheerful posts, but in the way I tried to be tolerable. The way I shrank my feelings. The way I edited my truth to make it easier for everyone else to digest. Letting go of that was terrifying. And freeing. And yet, family being what it is, there were always more layers to peel back. A few weeks after our coffee, I got a call from my dad. He rarely calls. Usually it's Mom who makes contact, and even then, it's typically just quick updates about the weather, the neighbors, or the dog they adopted after I moved out. But this time, it was him. Nadine, he said, clearing his throat like he always does when he's uncomfortable, your mother and I have been talking. I waited. I already knew where this was going. We think it would be nice if you and Leona could try again. Really try. I already did, I said, calmly. Okay, he said, after a long pause. But maybe you didn't give it enough of a chance. There it was. The subtle implication that I was, once again, the problem. That my refusal to pretend made me the ungrateful one. That civility mattered more than truth. She didn't apologize, I said. Not really. She was justified. She explained. But she didn't take responsibility. I think she was trying, Nadine. Would you accept that from me? If I humiliated her in front of family, ignored her pain, and then gave a half-hearted explanation 6 months later? He didn't answer. Because the answer was obvious. Leona was allowed to hurt me. I was expected to forgive her. That had always been the dynamic. I just never said it out loud before. She needs you, he said finally, as if that was supposed to matter. She needed me when she excluded me from the wedding. But she didn't want me then. More silence. Then a quiet okay, and a soft click. He didn't call back. I sat with that for a long time. The grief was less sharp now. Not gone, but dulled into something familiar, a throb instead of a stab. In the months that followed, my life kept moving. Marcus and I grew closer. He started spending weekends at my apartment. Machi tolerated him, which in cat terms was a declaration of love. We cooked dinners together. Watched bad documentaries. Talked about things that didn't feel heavy. It felt like building a life, one without all the inherited chaos I grew up with. Around the holidays, we decided to host a small gathering at my place. Just a few friends. Nothing elaborate. But it was the first time I'd hosted anything with real intention, not out of obligation, but joy. That night, standing in my kitchen with a glass of wine, music playing in the background, I realized I didn't miss them. Not Leona. Not my parents. Not even the false warmth that used to come from sitting at their table pretending everything was fine. It was strange, this quiet, steady happiness. Not euphoric. Just peaceful. And it felt earned. Still, the past has a way of knocking, even when you think you've changed the locks. It happened in February. An email this time. From Sierra. Subject, reaching out. I stared at it for a full hour before opening it. Hi Nadine, I've been meaning to write to you for a while. I've thought a lot about the wedding, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't handle things well. I listened to other people when I should have just talked to you directly. I know this is late. I know it may not change anything. But I wanted you to hear it from me. I'm sorry. Sierra. I sat there, stunned. Not because of the words, they weren't flowery or dramatic. But because they were honest. She didn't deflect. She didn't shift the blame. She just said what I had been waiting to hear from my own sister. I didn't respond right away. I needed to think. To feel. To decide if this door was one I wanted to reopen. Later that night, I told Marcus. She didn't make excuses, I said, almost surprised. She might have grown, he said gently. Maybe. It made me wonder about how we choose who to forgive. About the difference between reconciliation and reconnection. About how some people are worth the risk, while others have proven, time and again, that they're not safe. Leona still hadn't reached out again. But I could feel her orbiting. I heard through a mutual family that she had started dating someone serious. That she'd moved in with him. That she'd been trying to heal things within the family, which I took to mean she was rewriting the narrative to paint herself as a peacemaker. It didn't surprise me. Leona had always been better at appearing kind than being kind. And I was done mistaking performance for sincerity. I didn't reply to Sierra right away, but after a few days, and a therapy session where I read the email out loud, I wrote her back. Short, honest. Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate your words. It did hurt, but I'm glad to see you take responsibility. That means more than you know. We exchanged a few emails after that. Nothing deep, just light touches, the kind of messages people send when they're testing the waters of rebuilding something that had cracked. It was the first time I felt like someone in my family had actually grown. But Leona stayed silent. Until spring. It came in the form of an invitation, not to a wedding, but to a women in PR leadership panel she was co-hosting. I was CC'd on a group email she must have pulled from some mutual contact. She didn't even write to me personally, just lumped me in with a list of media and design professionals. The irony? The event was titled Sisters in Strength, Building Up the Women Around You. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes, laughing. The woman who couldn't offer a genuine apology for sabotaging her own sister's place in the family was now hosting an empowerment panel? It felt like satire. But then again, Leona always did have a flair for optics. I ignored the email. A week later, she texted me. "Hey. I hope you saw the invite, would love for you to come. I'm actually speaking on the importance of mentorship and sisterhood in the workplace, LOL grinning face with sweat, let me know if you can make it." And that was when it all clicked. She wasn't reaching out because she wanted to reconnect. She was reaching out because I had something she needed, validation. A quiet cosign. Me, sitting in the crowd, smiling politely, letting the world think we were fine. She wanted to leverage my silence again. Like she always had. But I wasn't silent anymore. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I did something very me. I submitted a pitch. The same organization that was hosting her panel, a mid-sized women's career network based in Seattle, had an open call for workshops that could complement their event series. I sent them a proposal for a live session titled, Setting Boundaries with High-Performing Narcissists, When Family is the Most Toxic Workplace. Within 3 days, I got a reply. They loved it. They asked if I could lead the session the month after Leona's panel. I agreed. I didn't use her name, obviously. I didn't even allude to her. But I crafted every piece of that workshop with a decade's worth of wisdom, pain, therapy, and hard-won peace behind it. The night of her panel came and went. I didn't attend. I was home, curled up with Marcus and Machi, watching old British comedies and sipping wine. But from what I heard, it was performative, flashy, filled with buzzwords like alignment and empowerment. My parents were there, of course. Leona posted selfies from the stage, her caption reading, "Couldn't have done it without the women who shaped me. 2 hearts #sisterhood #gratitude." I didn't like it. I didn't comment. I didn't correct the record. I just waited. When my workshop rolled around a month later, the attendance blew past expectations. Apparently, the theme had struck a nerve. Women showed up in droves, some from toxic families, some from toxic workplaces, many from both. I told my story, not using names, but painting it clear enough that anyone with ears could hear the truth. I spoke calmly, firmly, and honestly. I talked about growing up in a home where silence was a survival skill. About being the serious daughter. The one expected to forgive and forget. About learning to set boundaries, not to be spiteful, but to protect my peace. It was cathartic. More than that, it was empowering, not just for them, but for me. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me. Thank you. To tell me they felt seen. The organization even recorded the session. They posted clips to social media under the title, "How to Stop Performing for People Who Only Want You to Stay Small." The video went viral in our little local professional network. Leona saw it. I know she did. She didn't say anything. But 2 weeks later, I noticed she removed every sisterhood post from her profile. Another week after that, my mom called. "She feels like you humiliated her," she said, without preamble. "She's humiliated by the truth?" She said people are asking questions. That it's affecting her work. I didn't name her. You didn't have to. And that's when I knew my real revenge had landed. Not through cruelty. Not through screaming matches or public takedowns. But through clarity. Through building something solid out of what they tried to break. My revenge was in refusing to shrink. Refusing to play the part. Refusing to be the scapegoat who absorbs everyone else's sins just to keep the holiday table peaceful. Leona still lives in Seattle. We've passed each other at industry events, once or twice. She always gives me that tight, brittle smile. I always nod, polite, distant, unbothered. She doesn't have power over me anymore. And that is the most satisfying ending I could have imagined. Because the one thing a manipulator can't stand is watching you become everything they tried to convince you that you weren't. Loved, respected, and free.